Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of May 23rd. And my next guest is someone who I just met today, but I heard about her about a week ago. I was at my son's engagement party, Katie and Gina, and my daughter, Koya Paz, who is involved not only at DePaul, but with the Free Street Theater. I'm always asking her to come on the show. And she said, I've been on. How about we do someone else? And she recommended Rocio Chio Cabrera. And Rocio is a puppeteer, and she works with Free Street Theater as well as putting on other productions and works with a number of groups. So we're going to find out a little bit about her and about puppeteering and how that all those go together and produce some good works. So good day to you, Rocio.
Good morning. And although this actually isn't our first time meeting, we met on set at There Is a Future last summer.
Well, I'm glad to be corrected on that. And as an old guy, my memories is slipping, but
no worries.
Go to those events.
We had a great conversation about Buffalo.
Oh, right. Oh, I do remember. Yes. Okay. Well, we'll have to edit the whole show here, Hal. Well, let's start out here. You're from Chicago, born in Chicago, and you're raised in Humboldt Park. What is puppeteering, and how did you get into it?
Thank you. So I like to say that puppeteering is animating objects so that they can tell stories. And there used to be a standard definition of puppeteering that would say that you would manipulate objects. But now the general consensus is we use the word animates because objects within them have life already. Like the likeliness of, like the object will have a likelihood of something else. And so we are just merely animating it. To what end? To tell stories, to explore what it's like to be something else. That's what I like to say that puppetry is. But maybe I would like to add that puppetry is also the conception of these ideas. Sometimes you don't even have to build a puppet. For example, a kettle or a water bottle can be puppeteered too. So you're really just bringing in that play element, animating things for fun.
How did you get involved in this line of work? What inspired you? Who introduced you?
Yeah, I think I've always been a little artsy. I did study business in college. And then when I graduated, the pandemic hit and everyone was stuck at home anyway. And I had always, on my free time, did really intricate miniature scenes. And during the pandemic, when we were all buckled in, I spent more time. I would make these fabricate miniature scenes, but I didn't really focus on the character. And then during the pandemic, I started to work on the characters that lived within these scenes. And I was wondering what details they had. So I took a class in toy theater. And at the end of the class, we had a little presentation. And actually, my first class, I did a miniature toy theater piece of El Barzón. And that was 5 years ago. And now I'm working on a bigger production of El Barzón, also using puppets. But I really realized that I could tell any stories. I can play these mini games. And I was doing it with my husband, and we found it really fun. In this solitude of being enclosed in the pandemic, puppetry was so much more. You could go to other places. So I found it to be like a really like escapism.
What's the translation of El Barzón?
It means, that's a great question. It specifically refers to a pull ring inside of a yoke. So El Barzón is a piece based off a Mexican folk song. And the folk song sings about a farm worker, a campesino, who's pulling his oxen with a yoke. and tilling the land. And in the song, one of the pieces of the yoke breaks. And that one piece in English it's a pull ring. And in Spanish, it's el barzón, and it refers to the piece that's connecting the oxen to the yoke.
And that's the play that currently the presentation, the play, I assume we can call it, that you're putting on about Mexican laborers.
Yes, that is the play that is about Mexican laborers. El Barzón it's a folk song. We don't actually know exactly when it was first written. That is the nature of folk songs. But it, as I said, it tells the story of this campesino working in the field. And he's under these really intense situations that his boss is hassling him, and has a lot of external pressures and debts. And with this little pull ring breaking, he's now under even more debt. And this reflects the modern worker experience that, they're under the yoke of capitalism and something's got to give.
Where will this be presented, this puppet show that you're doing right now?
This piece will be around a series of parks all along Chicago, mostly in the West and South Side. And it's a free show in the park. And it opens late July into early August.
Is that going to be in conjunction with Free Street Theater?
Yes, it is a production of Free Street Theater.
And what is your relationship to Free Street Theater? I understand you are the artist in residence, or an artist in residence.
Yeah, I am an artist in residence currently at Free Street Theater. And Free Street Theater, to me, has been kind of there since the beginning of my theater career and my puppetry career. The first play I did with Free Street Theater was There Is a Future. And there I was an ensemble member, but I was also building puppets. And like I said, I didn't have a theater background. I studied business, and I kind of said, hey, I don't have this formal training, but I want to tell and make stories, and I want to bring this art form. And they were extremely receptive to my art form, and they really encouraged me. And since then, I've worked on more puppets with them. I'm devising this show, and I've brought in other artists to work with Free Street.
So I saw that play in some park far south, and were there actually puppet figures on sticks, and as well as people with big box heads and that kind of thing. Am I remembering correctly?
No, a little bit. We had mask work, which is not technically puppetry, but I think they're cousins to each other. But we did have a giant form monster that was meant to represent the bureaucratic forms, paperwork that crushes someone who's just trying to get a far up ahead. So we had that monster. We had another big head puppet that wasn't a mask. It was separate. And then we had, we did have some bags of money on sticks that were eventually followed by the cast during our Follow the Money segment.
Rocio, since you've gotten into puppetry, have you discovered any previous puppetry companies or groups? The only one that comes to mind for me is the Bread and Puppet Theater, who I don't know if I ever saw them in person other than when the bus pulled up at the Heartland Cafe and they had lunch there.
That's funny. I'm familiar with them. I actually just did a project with one of the artists that he was a managing director, I believe, of Bread and Puppet for the last 10 years. But he was in this project about 3 weeks ago. We went to Seattle and we built a giant puppet for SEIU 775, which is a service union. And he brought his expertise of big puppets. I brought my arts facilitation experience, and the event was led by Flying Leap. They are based out of New York City, and they focused on youth theater, but they also have experiences with building big puppets. They actually built 2 puppets, one on either side of the Mexican-American border in Sonora, Mexico, and in Arizona. And they brought these 2 puppets to meet each other on either side of the border. So that was Flying Leap Productions. I really appreciate them. That story is what made me get involved with that project. And then here in Chicago, I've worked with the Chicago International Puppet Fest and I've actually noticed that a lot of Latino artwork is puppetry. We just don't recognize it as such. And so kind of after my experience kind of going to the National Puppetry Conference at the Eugene O'Neill Center, I realized, wow, a lot of Mexican art is puppetry, and we don't see it that way necessarily.
Do you think it's an expanding art form here?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I believe I actually genuinely believe that Chicago is the puppetry capital. Puppetry is growing. It's so tangible. And I think that now with things becoming so digital, people are coming back to working with their hands because the process of making a puppet is part of the art form. You have to get all of your friends in a room. You need many hands and you need many ideas. So I do think that puppetry in and of itself is community building. If you're building a big puppet with someone, you guys are now bonded through paper mache and glue.
Well, we're doing this recording while you're in your studio. Yes. And I know you have a couple of people there with you. And so while you keep talking, maybe you can move around and show us what's going on. Because as you know, this is both radio streamed and on YouTube. So people who want it can get the visuals. And I think we're going to see a couple of cows here.
Yes, these are 2 giant oxen. Here is one of them. It doesn't have a name yet, but we are actually working on making a full-size oxen. And of course, we want it to be extremely lightweight for the puppeteer. And we want only 1 puppeteer in each cow. So we are actually recreating a yoke, like a traditional old school agricultural yoke. So here is one of the masks that's empty. And then here, Senor Felix is building the second cow head. We're paper macheing it. It already has 1 layer. We're going to add about 5 layers of paper mache and then remove it from its cast like a mask. And then, we'll have to make the backpack to carry it. And we are going to make a series of puppets for this piece. Here's our vision board. We're going to make 2 oxen. We are still brainstorming on how we're going to make the boss. We had thought about making a big head, but we don't want to lose the expression of the actor. And so we were thinking about how else to show status. So then we thought about making a ridiculously long sombrero because sombreros are a status symbol in Mexico. The type of sombrero you're wearing lets you know if you are a worker, if you own an hacienda, and basically your job. So we were thinking about doing that. We also have a great puppet concept in mind. We wanted to show the power of the people in the multitude of people. So we were going to make these backpacks that had people on either side. And so here is one of our faces. This is a beautiful woman. Her sombrero is half cut off, but it's a cardboard cutout of who Adelitas are known for. Adelitas are women soldiers during the Mexican Revolution. So we have some human cutouts that we're going to make into backpacks and wear them.
Oh, this is nice. I'm really glad you're showing us this. You know, in addition to this new play regarding Mexican laborers, you also have a puppet play. I guess that's what do you call it? A puppet play?
Yeah.
One that's called Juana and the Missing Mayan Book, which you do invite people to invite you to bring it to their schools, etc. Tell us a little bit about that play.
Juana and the Missing Mayan Book was a great project that I did with I did it when I was in the puppet lab from the Chicago International Theater Fest. But that play is about a little Mayan girl. She is 9 years old, and she lives in the world of the Spanish conquest, specifically 1692. And her story is about her discovering Mayan books and being at that critical age that she wants to read, but she doesn't know how to read this language because the Spaniards intentionally destroyed that knowledge. And so this play was really interesting. We basically rewrote history. In my first version
That's going on today too.
No. But I think it was in much more good faith with that story. The first version of that story, I made extremely true to history. And then I made more versions of that story. I made it with a group of students who were in third grade. And they were Mexican American students. And I asked them, what did you think about the play? And they said, I wish she would have won against the Spaniards. And I wish we knew what her book said. And I kind of basically workshopped the play again with the class to say, what do you wish would have happened? And it kind of aligns with history, but it was a different tone. She doesn't understand the book still, but some books she saves. And that's true. Today, there are 4 surviving Mayan books around the world. So that was a really interesting learning experience to use puppetry as a way to show the world what we actually want.
Well, I was going to ask you about puppetry as a teaching vehicle, but you clearly have answered that. So Rocio, a.k.a. Chio, right?
Yes.
As a Mexican-American, we're living in some serious times for people's safety and just carrying out their lives. So we've got ICE running around in all kind of vehicles, grabbing people, whether they're citizens or not. You as a Mexican-American artist, can you just share with us, we got about a minute to 2 left, your advice, your observations about, what do you want to say to your fellow citizens of the world about our current situation?
That's a great question. And right now, since I'm in this world of where I'm immersed in the Mexican Revolution, I see a lot of parallels between the average life of a person living in Mexico under extreme conditions. And I see it now. We are being overworked to a point where we can't think of another alternative. And so I just want to encourage people to try to think outside of the box, do things that are different, because it'll change the way you think about solutions. And I personally find a lot of strength in puppetry. If I can build something out of paper mache and cardboard, then I can build new paths, new ways of coming together. And so I just want to let people know that the power is in their hands. We just need to practice coming together and building bigger solutions together, not singular solutions, big societal solutions. That's what I would say.
Rocio, I want to thank you for coming on. That's Rocio Chio Cabrera. And can you give us a way that people can contact you or your website?
Yes. Thank you so much. My website is www.chio, CHIO Cabrera, CABRERA.com. And I also post a lot of my daily artwork updates on my Instagram, which is @Chio Cabrera, COZ, with a COZ at the end.
Well, it's really nice seeing you again. I'm glad you reminded me that we had met before. And do you have an opening date for the Free Street Theater production of your current project?
Yes, our opening date is on July 26th. I'm so sorry for that hesitation.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's July 26th, but I've been looking at paper mache a lot, and I haven't internalized.
Well, people can find it if they look up Free Street Theater. And I want to thank you once again for coming on, and I will see you soon.